All right, we are 23 seconds into the video, and I'm already annoyed. Welcome back, everyone. We have something special for you. I haven't done one of these rants or tirades in a while, or at least it doesn't feel like it's been very recently. But to give you a reason why we're diving into this one, we're going to jump into it momentarily. I was perusing the event schedule for PAX Unplugged, which is a real-life tabletop gaming convention. It's RPGs, it's board games, it's TCGs and CCGs, anything analog. They still have some video game stuff, but the Penny Arcade Expos are typically known for being video game conventions. But as of 2017, I want to say, they created PAX Unplugged, which is in the Philadelphia Convention Center. And my wife and I have been going every year that we can, pandemic excluded. And it's a lot of fun. And I was going through the schedule because I am a content creator. And part of it is they require you, if you're going to have a creator badge, you got to make a PAX video, which obviously that's fair. And I was going through the event schedule to be like, okay, well, what things do I want to put on the list to make sure that I hit? I want to make sure that I definitely talk to these booths, maybe reach out to some of these people ahead of time, schedule some interviews like I did last year, see what new cool games are coming or what updates to existing one. Like I really want to check out Gudnak again and pick up some of their expansions. So I noticed, as a lover of card games, and I've been doing this since 1994, and I started with Magic, and I played close to 50 other games at various competitive levels. I noticed Overpower was back. Now, I had heard that it was a Kickstarter, and apparently that Kickstarter completed in 2024, I believe. Maybe editing me will check it. For once we got this right on the first try, the funding period was from October to November of 2024, and as you could see on screen, even though we're scrolling past pretty quick, it funded pretty quickly. And I said, hey, I always kind of wanted to check that out when I first started playing Magic, but I was entrenched in Magic and I couldn't support 2 games at the time. So maybe now there's a chance to check it out. And let's take a look. So Overpower, the card game, at the time, back then, was primarily Marvel, I think, but also had DC. It was superhero based. And the idea is that you are trying to, beat up your opponent's team / complete missions. Now, as you can see here, and we'll leave this up on the screen, as I mentioned, it was a Kickstarter. It was a revival project. It was trying to bring this game back. And I love card games from the 90s. They are super rough. Spoiler alert. But they were pioneering things. Magic was the first one, but it wasn't the only one. There were other firsts, and people were trying some really crazy ideas. And some of my favorite games are from that era. And I still love playing them periodically, or even just taking the cards out and looking at them, because I think that there was a lot more emphasis then on theme and lore and trying to evoke certain things, whether it was from a given property or it was whatever the gameplay loop. Like if you've ever played the old Decipher Star Wars and Lord of the Rings games, or the Harper Prism Alien vs. Predator game, Alien vs. Predator vs. Terminator, technically, and a variety of other games, there was a ton of cool stuff. Overpower was one of those games, like I said, it was based on superheroes. You can check out the site, overpowercardgame.com here. They apparently have a entire tournament circuit that's been going around the continental US. And the big thing here, you'll have to bear with me for a second. So the big thing that caught my eyes after I said, oh, hey, there's an Overpower tournament. There's apparently a $10,000 Overpower tournament that it doesn't say here, but if you follow this link, it explains the sign up is free. As long as you have a badge and you walk into the convention, you can play. And at the time of this recording, there were only 30 people signed up. $10,000, $5,000, 2, 1, 500, 500, 500, 500. Like, this is insane to me. There is a cap of 80 players. I don't know if they'll hit it. I don't know if it's going to scale. I can't find that information yet. But as you'd imagine, I looked at this and said, hey, maybe I should check this out. Step 1 would be learning how to play the game, right? So I went to their site. I started going through their, well, this is the player network, but I started going through their their rule book, which you can see down here. And I started reading it kind of late at night, and I'm like, maybe I don't get it. Maybe I don't get it. So I actually went and watched this Learn to Play, which is what we're going to go through now. You think you remember this game? Maybe this will trigger some PTSD then.
Overpower. How to play. The object of
Okay, so before we really get into it, I don't know who this person is. I don't know who the Overpower people are. I will say that this is at no point am I trying to knock this guy or what he does. It looks like their entire channel, from when I looked the other day, is creating Learn to Play videos for a variety of different games. And I think the Learn to Play is very well done. I did not cross-reference everything they said with a line in the rulebook. I'm just making the assumption that they're correct and accurate. I mean, it links directly to their video from the Overpower website. I'd like to believe that they vetted it. So if this guy says it, I'm going to assume it's gospel as far as the rulebook goes. So we're going to let it play. I'm going to pause it at different points because, oh, good God, from a design perspective, I have a whole lot of thoughts because Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, this is a 90s-ass 90s game.
the game is to either be the first player to knock out all of your opponent's characters, get all your mission cards to the completed pile, or to get all your opponent's mission cards to their defeated pile. Your deck, also called your draw pile, must contain at least 51 cards, or 56.
All right, we are 23 seconds into the video, and I'm already annoyed. You should look at Shadowrun Edge Zone. I've been wanting, that's been on my list to try, and I have not gotten the chance to yet at the various conventions I've gone to. But yes, it's something I definitely want to try. I collected but did not play the original 90s Shadowrun game. So here's what I'm annoyed with, and there's a lot of things I'm going to be annoyed with. First of all, why are there two different deck sizes? Second of all, how am I supposed to know? So I'm coming at this from a competitive player perspective. If you're playing with your buddies at the kitchen table, the rules technically don't even matter. When people complain in general about like ban lists for a card game or restricted lists or whatever the terminology for your game of choice is, those don't matter. You're playing at your kitchen table. The FBI is not going to kick in your door and arrest you because you decided to change the game. No one cares. It's fine. And I've always struggled with explaining that to people. But this is from the competitive player perspective. Unless I'm sitting there counting your deck ahead of time, and I guess you could just ask, like, are you running the cards, the card type events that push it from a 51 to 56 card deck size? But I doubt I'm obligated to tell you. I go verify in the comprehensive rules. And because it's only a 5-card difference, especially in a sleeve deck, you're not going to be able to visibly tell the difference until the thing happens. And that is really irritating. We're going to come back to another irritation I have with the event cards. Multiple, actually. But this one already annoys me. Just make things consistent. And strategically, I don't know if there is a valid reason to run a deck without the event cards. But based on the way the rules are structured, I have to imagine, unless the cards just straight up suck, everybody's running a 56-card deck. I don't know. We'll see.
Cards if using event cards. Any card that starts the game in play and not in your draw pile, like character cards for example, do not count towards your deck total.
This is fine.
You must have exactly 4 different character cards.
I actually do like this from coming from Transformers, which had a point limit. So you had 25 points. The characters would be worth different points. So you could have a 6-wide team. You could have a 1-tall team. This is just a different way to do it. It's fine having like a set number.
Character cards
6 and 1/2 dozen the other.
Horizontally and have 4 power grid values on the right side, each ranging from 1 to 8. In their bottom left is the character's threat value. The combined threat value of all your characters may not be greater than 76. Some characters and
Why is it 76? I haven't found a reason. Why is it 76? Why is it not 50? Why is it not 100? Who the fuck came up with 76? Like, what?
home bases have a special ability at the bottom called their inherit ability, which is always in effect for the card's owner. You may have any number of identical copies of any cards in your deck,
Who thought this was a good idea too? Like, this is a very 90s concept. I will admit, Magic actually, like in the very, very beginning, had this too. There was not a restriction on how many cards you could have. If you wanted 75 lightning bolts in your deck, you could just play 75 lightning bolts. That would still be more than the minimum deck size, which is also bad mathematically, but you get the point. You could just run 30 Black Lotuses and 30 lightning bolts or whatever. And then it was eventually changed because they went, oh yeah, that's dumb. Now, because of the way the duplicate system in this game works, which we haven't gotten to yet, but that is a colossal clusterfuck. Running a number of extra copies of things seems bad. And I guess this kind of self-regulates because of the way the duplicate system, we'll probably come back to it if I remember to talk about this particular thing. But I have to, like, again, a minute 10 in, and I'm like, wait, what? I can run 51 copies of the same thing? That seems insane. It's not quite, but, like, this is weird. It's weird, but it may be fine.
Except cards that say 1 per deck.
This will come back to haunt us, though.
Each individual event card is
First of all, I don't... the ban versus restrictions is a large debate. We're not going to go through it here. Bans are better. Because reducing it to 1 still has, like, this is a super powerful card, and it's just going to feel all the more ball-crushing when your opponent does it the one time. Now, if you flip it and argue, oh, well, you can only use this one powerful effect once per game, and the game is hyper consistent, so your opponent knows you will basically always do this once a game, but then you only get to do it once. I can kind of get behind that. Mythgard had a similar setup where their highest rarity stuff were 1 per deck. It was very difficult to recur cards for the most part, but if you could, it was a big reward because playing that effect twice was bonkers. It kind of annoys me that there's stuff like this just inherently, like that's part of the balancing of the cards, but it is what it is. But here's the big thing, and they're going to say this, and I'm repeating it now because I'm kind of, I paused it mid-sentence. You can only play one of the events. So the other card types, if they say 1 per deck, you can only have 1 per deck, right? It's fine. These don't say 1 per deck. And just from a design aesthetic and like general new player friendliness perspective, that is super annoying. I understand it's a unique card type. So, well, events can only be 1 per deck. So why would we need to put it on there? You put it on there so that it's ease of playability. Like, just make my life easier because this is a complex game trying to ingest everything. And I go, all right, I'll build my first deck. I think I got it right. And then you sit down to play somebody. You go, well, wait, you can't have 35 copies of that event in your deck. Well, why not? You just said that I could have as many copies as I want. It doesn't say 1 per deck. Oh, well, there's this one liner that's in the rule book. That bothers me. This one isn't as bad as some of the later egregious things, but...
Each player sets up their side of the table with their 4 characters face up in front of themselves as so, with 3 frontline characters and 1 reserve character. These characters are called your team and refer to...
I actually kind of like this setup.
If you have a home base card, then it begins the game face up next to your reserve character.
The home base thing is fine. Like, I think this is also kind of cool. So the entire premise is that, like...
contribute to your character's threat value. You may not have home bases in your draw pile. Each player shuffles their deck and places it face down.
I was trying to get it to here. So... the idea here is that you have 3 guys and one of them dies. You promote the reserve guy, and I'm sure there are ways to swap them otherwise from other cards. I don't know. And then you have this technically 5th character in the home base that obviously it still counts to your bizarrely 76 card total. Don't ask me why it's 76. And then you get like, okay, well, this is an enchantment buff if you played Magic. It's an ongoing ability if you've played Verse or the WoW TCG or something like that. It's something that sits in play and then, you know, does stuff. I like this setup. I think this is kind of cool. You remember this game?
There are 3 face-up discard piles around it.
Why are there 3 separate fucking discard piles? Already, again, what is happening? They're going to explain why momentarily, but imagine what was the fever dream that was this design meeting. Did they do this in a weekend? They were all on coke and just like bang this out?
Called the power pack, the dead pile, and the defeated characters pile.
Keep the names in mind.
Power cards, as indicated with only having power icons in the corners, are discarded to the Power Pack discard pile.
Okay, fair.
Cards are oriented sideways with this look, and they, along with character cards and any character special cards, get discarded to.
Why is the defeated characters pile have characters and event cards? Why don't we have a fourth discard pile for the fucking event cards? Like, call it something. It's very silly, but like, call it anything else. I don't even care. Cthulhu trading card game. So there's several actually, but yes, that one was also pretty bonkers. I do remember that.
The defeated character pile. All other cards that are discarded go to your dead pile. Cards are always discarded to their owner's discard piles. Every card discarded is only public knowledge as it is.
So 2 points here. One, they had to clarify you only discard cards to your own pile. Why is that necessary? Like, I don't, like, are we talking like we're playing gin rummy and like we have a communal pile? How many dueling games do you discard cards to your opponent's discard? Like, that's crazy. It's silly, but whatever. But the thing that you may have missed, because I was busy yapping, was that the discard piles are not public knowledge. When something goes in, you're not allowed to look at your discard pile anymore, which will come up in a later part. This kind of shit drives me insane. So one of the things in Magic the Gathering that I'm pretty sure is still a rule because of legacy cards, not legacy the format, but like old cards, is graveyard matters. So there was something, I can picture the art. I'm pretty sure the card was called Death Spark. It was a 1 red instant that dealt the damage to something. But if it was in your graveyard during your upkeep and it was directly below a creature, you could do something like pay a certain amount of mana to put it back in your hand. But it had to be below the creature, meaning that you had to like sequence when you played it so that it would end up on your discard and then a creature dies and then you can get it back. That is just stupid because now it's like tracking all this extra stuff. And people have a tendency, they pick up cards and they look at them and then they rearrange them to make it easier. Like, I'll put all of this card type together and all of this card type together so I know what I have. Oh, wait, I wasn't supposed to do that because this card cares about the order. And for the most part, Magic and other games have just completely dropped that sort of mechanic because it's just an extra bookkeeping element that A, is very easy to cheat with. Like, and that's going to be a recurring theme in this game. It would be very easy to cheat with that sort of thing because it's just a sleight of hand thing, especially if like it's later in the game and there's, 20 something cards in there and you don't remember on turn 3 whether this was there or that. Additionally, it's just obnoxious to have to track. Like, imagine if you played Commander, imagine 4 different people and somebody accidentally screws it up. It can completely rewrite the fabric of the game. So the fact that it is not public knowledge is just in the same vein, and it's annoying. And again, it's going to come up because there is I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, there's a memory component to this game. And I'll point it out when it comes up. Trust me on this.
Is discarded. No player may look through any player's discard piles unless a card says otherwise. Whenever you draw a card, you must take the top card from your own draw pile.
Again, who's drawing from their opponent's deck?
Then you shuffle only the cards in your power pack into a new draw pile and continue drawing. Mission objective cards are placed opposite your draw pile in a reserve pile.
So now we have like,
mission pile is the completed mission.
We have our deck, we have 3 different discard piles, we have our onboard stuff, and then we're going to have 3 mission piles. Technically 6, or 5 rather. Technically 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll call this 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 zones. Technically 11 because they're going to have the ether or whatever is the in between your stuff is the battlefield. It's just we're only 3 minutes in. And like already, I can't imagine trying to teach someone this game. Like somebody who's new to card games. I can't imagine teaching somebody who's a veteran of card games this game.
Pile, and below it is the defeated missions pile. Pick a player to go first. This player has the initiative. Initiative determines the order of play between the players. Play always starts with the player who has initiative, then alternates. Each player draws 8 cards to form their hand. Look at your own cards, but keep them hidden from your opponent.
So 8 and then 51 and 56. I don't know if there was some weird equation they were trying to work for this. go multiples, but like, it's just, I don't know where these numbers came from. And I wonder how much when the game was originally designed was just like, well, we can't do 7 and 60 because that's Magic. I'd like to believe there was a math answer to this, but I don't know.
During the very first hand of the game, the player going second may draw 1 replacement card if they have any duplicate or unusable cards.
Duplicates are going to come up a lot, and it is super confusing. Like, ridiculous.
A hand is called a battle, and there are 8 phases in each battle. The phases are...
Why are there 8 phases? This is a very 90s card game thing, so I think everybody... Well, not everybody, but most people would agree the biggest drawback of Magic is the resource system, the lands. However, I would also argue that their extremely rigid turn structure is also a problem. If you notice, virtually every game after Magic has gone with a way, 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 way more freeform turn structure. There are arguments to have a very rigid turn structure. I think it is, generally speaking, better to just have a more freeform one. But here he's gonna run through the 8 phases, and they get more absurd as they move on.
Event, discard, placing, venture, battle, post-concession, and end of battle.
I literally laughed out loud when he said post-concession.
During the draw phase, each player draws 8 cards. If you have less than 3 frontline characters in play, then move your reserve character, along with all cards attached to it, to the front line.
So far, so reasonable.
Event phase. If you have an event card in your hand, you must play it face down on the table, then draw a replacement card from the top of your deck.
There are several parts that I'm going to repeat this that, like, you're kind of trusting your opponent to do things that they're supposed to, like, and they could definitely mess things up. Like here it says you must play the event if you have it. Odds are it's going to be beneficial to you. But what happens if you have your hand of 8 cards, right? And you have an event, and it turns out that that event is right now bad for you. And you go, oh, I forgot to play it. You don't check. There is a spoiler alert. At the end of the turn, you reveal your hand to your opponent and go, look, here's the proof that I did all the 95 fucking steps in this turn that I'm supposed to do. And if your opponent goes, wait, you had an event, you didn't play it. What does that mean? Or based on one of the other rules that's going to come up, what if you draw cards during your turn and one of them happens to be an event? How do I, as your opponent, know that you drew that event in mid-turn and not you started the turn with it? It would have been bad for you, and then you chose not to play it. Now, a lot of this, we could nitpick a lot of games and be like, oh, well, if somebody wants to cheat, they could just do this. And yes, but this game definitely feels like it lends itself to that more so than others.
If you have more than 1 event card in your hand, then you may only pick 1 to play. If you don't have an event card, then you declare it and pass. Then, the player with initiative flips over their event and both players resolve it, followed by the second player.
As far as like doing the game action part of this, like this is fine.
Placing the card in the center of the table between the 2 players in the place called the astral plane.
Oh, the astral plane,
Next
that's what
is
it
the
was.
discard phase. If you have any extra event cards still in your hand, you must discard them. Then, you must discard all duplicate copies of cards you have in your hand.
And now the shit is going to hit the fan. Wait until he explains how you determine duplicates.
Until you only have 1 of each. Cards in your hand are considered duplicates to all your placed cards on your characters in front of you. Power cards are considered duplicate if they have the same number value regardless of their power type.
This is already going to be a nightmare. So it is very simple to just be like, hey, if the numbers are the same, get rid of it. I think it would be, and this is a game balancing, like maybe it has to be this way, but it seems like a very easy oversight for a new player, especially to just be like, well, they're different symbols. They're not the same. Because they are quite literally not the same, but they are the same number. So this one I was kind of willing to give him a pass on.
There are 6 power types: energy, combat, brute force, intelligence, any power, and multi-power. Multi-power and any power cards are considered duplicate to any other power card of the same number.
I don't know why that line irks me so much, but if it's an any power, it's a wild card. Or it's a multi-power. it feels like it would be obvious, and I guess it's better to state it, even if it is obvious, because then there's no ambiguity. But if this is a wild card and it's a 5, and you have another card that's a 5, and I just said that if the card's independent of their symbol, if they have the same number, they count as duplicates, wouldn't you think that's also a fucking duplicate? The one where it's multi-symbol, I get the clarification for, but the any one for some reason bothered me.
Cards have a black border with a character name, card name, and effect text at the top or bottom, and sometimes have icons. Special cards are only considered duplicates if they have the same character name, card name, and function. There are
So that implies that you could have the character name, card name, and a different card text. They have to have all 3 elements have to match. So if I have Zeus Thunderbolt that acts as a level 10 energy attack, that's not a dupe for this. Which, like, I get it. And maybe that's how they're selling packs is, oh, well, you need 9 different versions of Thunderbolt because you don't want to have a million dupes, even though this one is the best one. Like, that's a way to solve the problem of, well, if you don't have a resource system, which this only vaguely does, if you don't have a resource system, why not just always play the maximum level thing? Well, in this case, you can't. But then you would always just keep the maximum level thing and discard the other one? Like, I don't get it. Like, and I'm inferring something here. Maybe that never happens, but for most other games, it would just be like, does the name match? Yes. Does the subtitle match? Yes. Now we're checking a third thing that is not just a name or a title here. It's an entire fucking text box to find out, like, oh, is there a semicolon here instead? So it's not exactly the same. I don't know if it's going to get that granular, but, like, that's the implication here.
character name, card name, and function. There are several types of universe cards. Basic,
Unless we're saying function is does damage, and then whether it does 10 or 8 doesn't matter. I don't know.
training, ally, and teamwork. Basic,
This also irks me from a design perspective. Why is basic universe here? And then universe training here? Like, why isn't it training universe, ally universe, teamwork universe, all in the same spot? Why is it in 2 different fucking parts on the card? Yes, they're right next to each other. And yes, this is super nitpicky, but it just feels like nobody proofread this. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not trying to put this on the people who relaunched the game, because I'm confident that this is the way the old game probably worked. But, like, all of this stuff, we're 5.5 minutes, almost 5 minutes and 40 seconds in. No wonder this fucking game failed the first time. Like, this is super confusing. Nobody's gonna, like, I remember playing Magic, and it was like, oh, we'll get in a game at lunch, or we'll get in a couple games at lunch, or, you know, like, we'll hang out wherever and play a quick game. I could definitely see arguing with someone for like an hour about, oh, you had that event in your hand. No, you didn't. Oh, well, this was a duplicate. No, it's not technically a duplicate because of blah, blah, blah. Oh, well, I missed this thing and it changed the whole game. Like, I don't know.
basic, training, ally, and teamwork. Basic, ally, and training are duplicates if they have the same to use value, grant the same bonus, and have matching power types. Teamwork are duplicates if
So now we need, again, 3 things need to match, which you could look at it the other way and say, oh, well, if one thing is different out of these 3 criteria, it's not a dupe. But that's a lot of checking and rechecking. I think it feels like there's a lot of busy work to verify. And yes, you would have built your deck and you would have known, oh, I put these in. So you're going to configure your deck so that you probably minimize the number of duplicates so that you can play the maximum number of cards on any given turn. This still just seems incredibly obnoxious.
they have the same to use value and attack value in the same power type, even if the follow-up power types in the description are different. Aspect cards are considered duplicates.
So we need to repeat this one.
Duplicates if they have the same to use value and attack value.
Gotta go
in the
back a
same
little bit.
value, grant the same bonus, and have matching power types. Teamwork are duplicates if they have the same to-use value and attack value in the same power type, even if the follow-up power types in the description are different. Aspect cards.
So this entire exercise is annoying to me because every type has a different setup to determine how they're dupes. Even though there's other things that are on there that are considered for card type A, whether they're dupes or not, but not for card type B. It's like, just have some uniformity. Imagine if in Magic, instead of having power and toughness, there were like 8 stats and you use them all differently at different points in the turn. And it wasn't like, oh, well, this phase, we're always using this. It's like, well, sometimes you'll use this and sometimes you'll use that. But if you play this card, then the other 3 that you're not using add up. And then if you divide it by pi, like, go fuck yourself. Get out of here.
Are considered duplicates if they have the same name and function. Furthermore, if you have
again, with the card text.
Unusable, that is, any cards that cannot be played.
Oh, this is the part that really gets me.
Furthermore, if you have any cards that are considered unusable, that is, any cards that cannot be played, then you must discard it. The exception would be is if there's a chance that you could draw the needed card later in the turn to make it playable.
Get the fuck out of here with this. This is insane. So what they're saying is if you cannot play a card, so like this Zeus card requires Zeus. It says Zeus on it, right? Like you have to have Zeus in play to play it. So that card is quote unquote unplayable. However, the next statement is
any cards that cannot be played, then you must discard it. The exception would be is if there's a chance that you could draw the needed card later in the turn to make it playable.
How the fuck would anyone know that? How would you know? I guess it's possible, like the Zeus card, if there are literally no resurrect cards in the game, and I have to imagine there's at least one, to return a dead character back to play. How would you know? How would you know as the other player? Because I could just go, oh, well, what if I drew my resurrect card? You may not even be fucking playing it, which again, maybe we just relying on the fact that, oh, well, nobody will lie. Nobody will ever try and cheat. Nobody will ever whatever. But even if it goes beyond that, like, there are cards, so they're going to go on to explain that you can't play a card unless, like, see this 6 here or this 7 or whatever. You need to have that value on one of your guys. Like, that value or higher in order to play it. It's like a threshold, kind of. And, well, what if I played something to buff my guy? Or I drew into something that would allow me, or I could hypothetically draw into something that lets me buff my guy. How do I know? Let's say I have 0 draw cards in my deck, and I know there are 0 draw cards in my deck. How do I know you don't have an effect that makes me draw? And therefore, I might be able to play this card. And why that matters is because later on, they're going to describe that the turn structure is we alternate playing cards. Well, if I still have cards in my hand, you have to do calculations based on, okay, you have 4 cards in hand. That could be X, Y, or Z to impact this board state. But if I'm consciously or unconsciously cheating by holding back cards because, oh, I might be able to play it later, that's a problem, right? Because now that dramatically impacts how you are playing your game. And again, you could be legitimately playing it because you think you could draw into something, and then it turns out you can't for whatever reason. Either you literally can't, as in it's actually impossible and you should have known, or it was possible and it just didn't come up. Either way, this is dumb. Like, this is stupid.
Next is the placing phase. Starting with the player who has initiative, players take turns placing cards, one at a time, from their hand face up on the table on top of characters and home bases with these restrictions. Each character may only have 1 power card, 1 special card, and 1 universe card. The character must meet the requirements to play the card in order to place it. Special cards that name specific characters must be placed on that matching character. A home base may only have 1 character special card and 1 aspect card. Cards placed on top of characters and home bases are public knowledge to both players and should always be visible. If a card forces a character to discard a card and doesn't specify if it's placed or in hand, either may be used.
So I don't like that. The word and like working backwards. I don't like the wording where it's ambiguous like that. Just say it's from play or hand. Like, are they charging you by the word? Like, come on. One of the things that I think caused Magic to really skyrocket over other games, and this was well into its career, is codifying the templating so that cards, like early on in Magic's career, it was bad. Like there were cards that made no sense. I'm not saying that like this game was an outlier or something and it's like, oh, well, Magic was always locked down and was great. And we take it for granted now because we have years and literal decades behind us of card game design and development showing that, yeah, you need to explain how your fucking cards work. Just make it clear. Don't be fucking ambiguous with this shit. That actively fucking pisses me off. Going farther back, I don't mind the way this plays out. Like this is fine. I think that it's reasonable. Like the way the actual playing of the game goes.
But once you pass, you may no longer place cards in this battle. Next is the venture phase. Each player must make a wager, which is called a venture or venturing. To venture, take one or more mission objective cards.
It is interesting that you do the gambling after you've played your cards. Usually it would be beforehand. So it's like, I don't know if my opponent can do this.
In your reserve mission or completed mission piles and move them to the side of their respective pile and rotate them 90 degrees. You are only allowed to venture cards from your completed missions pile to promote cards in your defeated missions pile.
That'll come back up.
More than 2 total cards, regardless from which piles, then your opponent draws 1 card for each ventured card above 2.
I'd be very good. Like, this is actually interesting from a game design perspective where it's like, okay, remember, the way to win is either kill all their guys, kill all their missions, or complete all your missions. And completing your missions is the primary objective. So that, from a game resolution standpoint, will take precedent. Like, if you complete all your missions and then they kill all your guys, you will win, kind of thing. It's interesting that, like, if you try to win too fast, they get to draw extra cards, which then, as you will probably surmise, will allow them to make it more difficult for you to complete the additional missions. So it's kind of interesting as a balancing act. Like, I like it. You want to complete 7, so if you go 2, 2, 2, 1, and they never beat you because there's a sequence for that, you know, like 4 hands of this is probably a decent game, I think. I'm not sure.
Venturing begins with the player with initiative, so the second player may adjust their venture based on any new cards they may draw. At the end of the venture phase, in initiative order, you may concede the battle before it begins if you want.
This is where I literally laughed out loud because at this point I was ready to concede the battle and just move on from this game. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what is going on?
If a player concedes, then immediately jump to the end of battle phase. Otherwise, proceed to the battle phase. An attack card is any card that targets a character or location, whereas cards that target special cards or the opponent are considered utility cards. During the battle phase, the player with initiative takes the first turn. On your turn, you may make one offensive action, either by playing an attack card or utility card. Then, your opponent has the opportunity to respond with a defensive action if they want. Or, instead of performing an offensive action, you may concede. An offensive action.
In response, I concede. I don't know why, but it makes me laugh every time I hear it. Like, rather than doing something that's going to help you win the game, you could just fucking lose. All right, we'll move on to the next. This is where, like, those extra cards come in, and obviously, like, when I was saying that, oh, you do the gambling part before you get to play cards, well, here's where you get the extra stuff. So you suit up, then you gamble, then you actually resolve the fight.
Is any card that has a sword's icon on it. A defensive action is a card with a shield icon on it. Power cards can always be used either offensively or defensively. To perform an action, place a card from your hand, or from on a character or home base, face up to the astral plane. An offensive action originates from one of your frontline characters or your home base, even if the card is played from your hand, and targets an opponent's frontline character of your choice, indicated by placing the card vertically in front of the target. If the attack hits, then it is rotated horizontally. Unless obvious, you must announce which of your characters is making the offensive action. Characters in
I find that like that strikes me as a very 90s rulebook thing. Unless it's obvious, you have to tell them. Like, just fucking tell them. Like, why is that such a like? Why are we even debating about this? Just tell me.
reserve may not make offensive or defensive actions.
It's just such a silly thing.
Unless a card specifically says so. However, a reserve character may take a defensive action if they are targeted with an attack. Each character's grid values determines the maximum value the matching power card can be when an offensive or defensive power card is used. Any power cards, as indicated by the white circle icon, can be used with any power grid color so long as the value requirements are met. Additionally, special cards that name a specific character on their side can only be used with that specific character, even if that card has a power icon value that is greater than that character's grid value. If a card is placed on top of a character, only that character can play it. Characters may not use placed cards to defend a teammate unless a card or effect allows it. Whereas, cards in your hand can be used for any character who meets the requirements to play that card. When your character is attacked, you can defend one of several ways. After a successful defense, the involved offensive cards and defensive cards are discarded unless those cards say otherwise.
So I don't quite have a great handle on combat. I'd have to run through this, like actually playing the game a couple times, because it definitely seems like your initial thought might be, why would I ever play stuff in the previous phase? Because then my opponent knows it's there. If you can only commit one offensive card, why wouldn't I just hold it, play it from hand, and go, oh, well, my Cthulhu is attacking your Achilles, or whatever the fuck it is, and just lights him up. And then your opponent has less chance to respond since you're allowed to just do it from hand. But there's got to be a reason why.
If a special card should not be discarded based on the hourglass icon. A full hourglass means the card remains in play for the duration of the game, while a half-full hourglass remains in play for the duration of the battle. Cards with hourglasses can still be discarded early by the effects of other cards. The ways to defend are as follows. You can block an attack by playing a defensive card of any color that has a value equal to or greater than the offensive card. You do not need to match the color of the attack. Or, you can use a special card that says you avoid an attack. Or, you can make the target of an attack invalid through the effect of another card, making the attack fail. Another way to stop an attack is to negate the attack. Negates are a unique effect in Overpower because they cancel out a card while it's still in the astral plane before any text on the card has taken effect. Negating does not technically count as defending an attack, it is its own game effect. Some cards can be combined with other cards and played together to affect an offensive.
So like the previous section, no notes, like, it's fine. I play a card, you play a card, we compare the numbers. That's it.
Or defensive card's value. You may only modify a card with one universe card at a time, but an unlimited number of special cards. If a special card is being played to modify the value of a defense, it can only be played if the modified value is necessary to defend the incoming attack. The requirements for use are in the top left and must be met based on the character's power grid value, not the card being played. When the attack or defense is performed, multi-card combos play together as a single action, but once resolved, the cards are seen as individual cards. Combining cards is different than making multiple attacks. Basics, trainings, and certain specials combine to make a single attack, but teamwork and ally cards are played as their own attack first, and then the bonus is only applied to subsequent attacks.
And again, I'm like, my eyes are glazing over as somebody who's played 50 card games and is playing at World Championship level in several of them. This is something that, like, I think I grok, and it's just going to have to be played. Like, okay, you can combine cards under certain circumstances. That's fine.
Trainings and certain specials combine to make a single attack, but teamwork and ally cards are played as their own attack first, and then the bonus is only applied to subsequent attacks.
So, like, this first teammate must make one brute force or intelligent power. First teammate must make one brute force or intelligent power card attack with +0 bonus. Second teammate may make one power card attack of the other type with +1 bonus. So, like, okay, this doesn't seem ridiculous.
After the initial attack is defended or taken. Certain specials, such as Mob Mentality, behave like this and are played similar to Teamwork or Ally Universe cards. The new value of the attack or defense may exceed your character's grid value, so long as the requirements for the cards individually are met. If a modified attack hits, Basic Universe and Training Universe cards are discarded into the dead pile and do not count towards character damage or the venture total. If an offensive card is...
That part is weird to me. Like, so you go through all these hoops to basically breach their defense, but then the original attack is the only thing that does damage. I guess this was kind of a balancing thing, so you can't just vomit your whole hand on the table and go, okay, take 1 billion in one swing, I guess.
Not defended against, then the card successfully hits its target. If the defending character now has a cumulative numerical hit value of 20 or more from all attacks throughout the game, then that character is cumulative knocked out and is discarded to the defeated character discard pile, and all cards...
There's a part that's going to irk me here.
Alternatively, a character can be spectrum knocked out when they have at least 3 hits from cards in 3 different colors.
So there's going to be a third way, and that isn't even the thing that bothers me about this. The cumulative damage is actually what bothers me and how they track it. But so you can deal 20 damage to kill a guy. We're going to talk about how they track it in a second. Or you could hit them with 3 different kinds of attacks, so you can see the 3 different things. I forget what they are, but like it's energy, skill, and fucking librarian. I don't know.
Any power cards do not count towards spectrum knockouts. A multi-power card represents only one single color it displays at a time, and immediately changes to whatever color is needed for a spectrum knockout, if possible.
That would be confusing, but like it's reasonable.
Have a cumulative and spectrum knockout simultaneously. Absolute knockouts cannot be prevented by card effects or abilities. There are 3 more card symbols.
So that was the third way to do it, and like this would take so many games. I don't know how often these things come up, but like this would take so many games to remember that this is even possible. And I say that, again, as somebody who's played like 50 different card games at high levels. And there are games where it's just like, yeah, you have these one-liner things that you read the rule book and no one is ever going to fucking remember. Imagine, and this is what gets me going, is, so I first saw this and I'm like, oh, there's a $10,000 tournament. I should probably figure out how to play this. How do I pass up an opportunity? Because this seems like it would be a really cool thing to do, right? I probably wouldn't even top 8, but like, it's like, oh yeah, I played in the 10K. It's more than a 10K because it normally would be, if it was a 10K, it would be distributed across top 8, but this is more. So it's 7, 8, 9. Wait, it's 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's 20K. It's pretty good. Imagine going to a convention floor, if you've been to any kind of major convention, and trying to learn this game on the fly with 50,000 other people screaming in a giant auditorium, essentially. It's not an auditorium. It's just like a giant hall. Just the echoing and the noise. There's just so much shit going on. It would be impossible. This is like fucking impossible. I'm going to try and do it, but we'll see.
Knockouts simultaneously. Absolute knockouts cannot be prevented by card effects or abilities. There are 3 more cards.
Would never remember that.
Icon means the card gets attached to a character card.
This one's pretty straightforward.
Means that the card can only be played if it's the first card you attack with on your turn. You can play multiple first.
So notably, remember they talked about battles versus turns. So the battle is like the hand. Like you draw 8, you go through the 75 million step turn. That is the battle, but you take turns going back and forth, attack, defend, attack, defend, attack, defend. And that's what they're talking about. So like you could play 2 first cards.
Defending an attack is not considered your turn, but happens on your opponent's turn. The capital A icon means that the card is placed and remains in the astral plane while in effect. After your turn, making your offensive action and your opponent's option to defend.
Let me just tell you that this board is going to be so fucking cluttered. Like bonkers cluttered. There's going to be so much shit.
Then your turn ends, and it's your opponent's turn to make an offensive action. This process then repeats. If you play a card that allows for multiple attacks, then you would perform each attack one at a time, giving your opponent the opportunity to defend each one before the next attack, then your turn ends. If, on your turn, you do not have any offensive attack actions in your hand, then you may pass. You do not need to attack with placed cards if you don't want to. If you pass, then, on all your future offensive turns of this battle, you must either pass or concede, even.
I'm glad my first attempt making a board game is less confusing this. So I'll have some wrap-up thoughts. We are getting close to the end. Like, I do amateur game design, and it's primarily focused on card games, and occasionally minis games where I'm like, oh, well, this card game would be better as a minis game. But yeah, like board clutter and complexity reduction is super important to me.
If you have
I think it should be for everybody.
If you still have an attack card in your hand, then you must play or concede. If a player concedes, then immediately move to the post-concede.
It kills me every time that there is a concession phase. Well, post-concession phase. Like, Imagine how, like, if you played a competitive game, usually people are like, all right, let's go on to game 2 or something like that. But occasionally you will have someone go, I concede. We can go on to the next game or something like that. But now that is part of the regular game parlance, conceding. So, like, you have to be very clear when earlier in this, it's just super ambiguous with a lot of the language. It's just really funny.
Session phase. If both players pass, then move to the end of battle phase. If all of one player's characters are knocked out during a battle, the only action that player may take on subsequent turns is to pass. They may not concede, and the game's victory condition does not immediately resolve if one entire team is knocked out. The post-concession phase is skipped unless a player concedes during the battle phase. They may not concede, and the game's victory condition does not immediately resolve if...
It's just crazy. It's like, if someone loses all of their guys, they are not allowed to act on any turn, but they're also not allowed to concede. Now, again, this is talking about the game function concession, but it's just such a silly statement to be like, yeah, I have no guys. I can't play the game, but I'm not allowed to concede. Like, it's just fucking absurd.
One entire team is knocked out. The post-concession phase is skipped unless a player concedes during the battle phase, not before. This phase allows for either player to make exactly one offensive action.
So I'm pretty sure you can concede in the venture phase. So now the time at which, you know, I get it. If you're involved in the game, the timing of the concession, this is going to become like second nature. But when you concede now drives whether there's 45 other phases for the turn.
From a card or game effect which has the text allowing it after the concession, even if they have more than one action available to them. Their opponent may defend like normal, then the phase ends. During the end of battle phase, players first add up all of their hits to their opponent's characters in the current battle, along with any hits in the astral plane from knocked out characters and cards affecting the venture to determine the player's venture total. The player with the higher venture total wins the venture and the battle. The winner of the venture moves all their ventured cards up one pile. For every card ventured from the completed objectives pile, a player may advance one card from the defeated objectives pile up one pile. Or, if 2 or more cards were ventured, they may choose to advance one card from the defeated objectives pile up 2 piles for every 2 that were ventured.
This shit is so confusing. Like, imagine, and I get it, like, some of these things you just have to accept are, like, players have to pay attention to the board state. They have to understand what's happening. It's the responsibility of both players involved to maintain board state. But look, we've all played at card shops. If you play card games, people bump into the fucking table. This is like, imagine trying to manage this. Somebody bumps in the table and you're like, shit, well, which things were where and when? And like, there's too many things.
The player who lost the venture moves all their ventured cards down one pile. If both players' venture total was a tie, then neither player wins and all ventured cards remain ventured for the next battle, with each player still needing to venture at least one card.
I actually like the venture system, but
in this scenario, the draw penalty for wagering more than 2 cards does not count previously ventured cards. If you concede, then your opponent wins the venture regardless of the venture total. If you have all your mission cards in your completed missions pile, or if all your opponents are in their defeated pile, then you immediately win the game, even if all your characters were knocked out during the most recent battle. If
like I was saying earlier,
mission objective cards, then check for a knockout victory. If there is none, then both players add all the hits from the battle to their characters by rotating them 90 degrees and sliding them underneath the top side of the character.
So, from what I can tell, and it's difficult because, yeah, look at this board state. Like, this is, what the fuck is happening here? But from what I can tell, he slid, like, these cards and these cards under the Wicked Witch of the West and Deja Thoris, whoever the fuck that is. But I think these cards, the vertical ones here, underneath this character, and the vertical one here, underneath this character, belong to the top player. So that means that, remember your deck reshuffles if you run out of cards? Well, these cards will never come back because they need to be there. Well, I guess if the guy dies. But like, that's a weird thing to track. You know, like, it's very rare in other games that you play an enchantment on your opponent's guys. Usually it's like, oh, I play a kill spell. It kills your guy or deals damage to your guy or does a thing and then immediately goes away. That wasn't always the case. And there certainly are examples of things where, oh, I play a negative ongoing thing to your guy and it stays out there. And that's fine, but this is part of the core rule set that's tracking it. And my question is this: why the fuck aren't we just using dice? Or, better yet, how about government-issued damage tokens? If you can't see what this is, it's a quarter. Like, use pennies, use little glass beads, use dice, there's 50 million damage. I don't know if in tournament play, do people do that and then just put these things in the discard? Because that does impact the game, whether you have access to a given, say this 6 green. Remember, you're doing this because there is another 6 green, but that is, I think, the bottom players. So the point is this: let's say 6 green is the highest that you could have. It's not based on the stats here, but let's just pretend. And because of the duplicate system, you probably have some number of 6 greens, but not that many, because you need to divide up the numbers, or you don't have that many 6s in general, because you want to divide up the numbers so that way you're not discarding your entire hand at any given time, which is also a huge problem that we'll come back to. But if that thing stays in play versus is able to be recycled into your deck, is a massive fucking difference. That changes a lot of the math behind how your deck is constructed depending on how you do it. So I don't know if this is required or not. Also, the board state is a disaster. What the hell is happening here? There's too many things going on. Just use dice or counters.
And count towards their damage total or other effects throughout the rest of the game. Now, both players reveal their hands to each other and then discard any remaining cards, as well as all cards in play that have...
Here's the oops, I cheated phase.
half-hour glasses, as well as any events that were in play. Then you play another battle, starting at the draw phase, with both players drawing 8 new cards, with the player winning the venture having initiative. If the venture total was a tie, then the player who went first in the previous battle maintains initiative. Repeat this process until there is a winner.
And that's how you play that game. Wow. So yeah, I have thoughts. This is already going on very long because this was a 20-minute video. Even though we were playing it on 1.5 speed, I paused a lot and talked about a lot of different things. The bottom line is this is a 90s-ass 90s game. The rules are super involved. It assumes that, this is your game. You're not playing any other game, so you couldn't possibly be confused with other things or whatever. There are so many things that feel like they could be streamlined in this. And given that this was made, this video was 11 months ago. If you're going to relaunch a game, it's tough because, for example, Verse 1.0 came out in 2004 or 5, whatever. And then was relaunched in 2014 or 15 as Verse 2.0. And first of all, the launch was a clusterfuck, but they kind of implied, including with promotional product, that it was going to be a continuation of the original game, or at least a very, very close spiritual successor, even if it wasn't directly compatible, even though the initial promotional product implied that, whatever. Try not to digress too much. The point is that they then launched it, and it was a wildly different game, and people went batshit. They were pissed. It still was somewhat successful. It was still fine. It lasted for a number of years, and honestly, I think the second version was better than the first, but that's a different discussion. The bottom line is that it's very dangerous to say, hey, I'm this game, but not really this game. And I think that there was some level of, assuming, I don't know the original rules for the game from the 90s, but based on this, this sure as hell seems like it's the identical rules. I have to imagine that they wanted it to be backwards compatible with the original game, and therefore they kept all the rules the same. They did all this stuff to jump through hoops and rebalance it and blah, blah, blah. And there are interesting parts of this game. Like, I like the venture system. I think that's really cool. I like the way that the characters are set up. I think that the actual playing of like, oh, well, I play a guy and then this, and the restrictions on how you are doing stuff. But it's just like, I think all of the systems are cool individually, and then they just kind of get very messy as they actually get played. There's a difference between complexity and depth. And there's also, which is something that's lost on a lot of people, but there's also simplicity of rules and complexity of game components. So like, it's different if the rules are extremely simple, but then the cards create these complex scenarios, and that starts to lead into depth. You could have still simple cards and still have deep gameplay. I mean, look at chess. The game itself is not that complex. Is it more complex than checkers? Sure. It's certainly not as complex as plenty of other games out there, but it is way deeper than the vast majority of games, right? I think we can probably all agree, or like, we can at least get in the ballpark on that sort of thing. I think this game, as with many 90s games, has a problem with being too complex at the base core rule set level, and then makes their cards seemingly very simple, because some of them just are straight up numbers. That's it. It's art and numbers. Some of them have effects. I'm sure that they do get more complex and make the game more interesting. But the base complexity of like having to jump through all these hoops to get this stuff, like getting people over that initial hurdle is really hard. I think that there probably is a decent game to this. I do still want to try it, but at every turn, I'm going to be annoyed because it's going to be just like Magic. Especially now that I've played other games, going back to Magic is pretty much impossible because it just has the worst possible resource system, right? Maybe not the worst possible. There are definitely ones you can make that are worse, but of the options, it is one of, if not the worst resource system possible. And I think similar things are going to happen if I played Overpower, where I'm going to go through this stuff and I'm going to say, well, why didn't you just do this at the design level? Like, why do I have to do this? This is just obnoxious. And yes, that level of obnoxious, that level of specificity, that level of rigidity can lead to interesting game states. I'm not saying that it precludes having a deeper, interesting game, but you could also have a deep and interesting game without having all of the lumps and bumps along the way. It is possible. And I think that it is tough for me to look at this in the year of our Lord 2025 and say, this is the game I want to play over other games, when there are a, not even non-zero, but seemingly a significant number of hurdles and headaches that you have to go through. Now, all that being said, I'm still going to check it out at PAX, and we'll see. But that's going to do it for this particular video. Let me know what your thoughts are on Overpower, what other games, or if you want to call me stupid and that this is the greatest game ever, that's fine. I'd love to hear it, because I'd like to sell me on this game. Or if you know a game is going to be at PAX and you think I should check it out, let me know down in the comments. But that's going to do it for this time. So as always, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Tune in next time for more Random Thoughts.